And I think that sort of takes me on to the next point, and I'm gonna mash three young players together here, and that's Adam Idah, Josh Martin, and Andrew Omobamidele. And Norwich have a decent academy. They obviously play in Premier League 2. But I mean, I'd have to check the table. Go off the bat, I wouldn't know where they finished in the standings this season. But in particular,
I think they had a promising start.
Yeah, and then sort of tailed off ever so slightly. Well, I mean, there are teams like Leeds in there who pretty much practically field half the first team some games. So it's a difficult old league. But those three, Idah, Martin, and Omobamidele, they're three names that, again, from the outside looking in, are the ones which I look at and think, okay, these are the players that have good rep about them in Norwich's academy, and essentially from watching them, you do get that impression as well. So there's the eye test, the stats, the reports, the local media, everything sort of it stacks up essentially. I think a lot of people from the outside may have thought that if Teemu Pukki wasn't retained when Norwich went down, that Adam Idah may have slotted in. Obviously, he hasn't had the minutes that a lot of people may have expected him to in the Championship this season. The other two, obviously, a little bit younger than he is. Well, I think Josh Martin's the same age, but hasn't had that first team exposure to the same extent. But what is essentially the plan for them? What is the hope for them at Norwich, really?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they're approaching some really important times, maybe some more than others. So Adam just had one of those seasons where just nothing went right, really. I mean, he scored the last goal and the first goal of the season. But in between, he basically got sent off a bit harshly against Wycombe, had a nasty foot injury that came while he was away with Ireland, which I don't think Norwich were best pleased about how that was all handled. He had COVID at one point, and then there was another injury as well. I can't remember which injury that was. So just lots of things that just conspired to write off a season where I, at the start of it, felt it was going to be his breakthrough campaign, because there were glimpses in the Premier League, but he clearly is still quite raw. I think what he needs to be sat at home and he needs to make sure when he comes in pre-season that he has got the mentality Todd had 2 years ago. That's exactly where Adam Idah needs to be, because if he has the talent and the physicality. Yeah. He could be a proper option for Norwich, but he has to have that. He's quite a laid-back character, and he's at a point now where he's not had a great season. It's not been his fault. He now needs to prove that he is hungry to put that right, make up for lost time, all of the cliches, and because I think it is there for him if he does it. Daniel will play him. They want to bring him on, and they do think he's good enough for that level, and which is an incredible vote of confidence in his ability. You think about the fact he's been playing for Ireland. I know that's been going pretty badly, but that speaks volumes, and he's still so young. So he's got to prove that. I think that's why this is an important moment for him, because it is there for him, but he's just got to prove that he's hungry and really, really wants it. So that's a challenge for him, I think. Andrew Omobamidele. Wow, I mean, this is a tricky one, because you really don't want to big someone up and just put pressure on them. But I have to say, like, the way he handled the end of the season is just phenomenal as a centre-back. I mean, to the point where he looks as comfortable as Ben Godfrey ever did playing in that role. I have to be honest. His use of the ball, he grew into it. I think it's just immaturity things in a way of, I remember Max Aarons shouting at him at Preston going, well, I won't say exactly what he said, but it was effectively, you need to talk. And I could hear him from the stands, and they weren't the only words he used. But it's that sort of stuff that I think he's got to learn. But defensively, he was so calm and measured at a really important time for Norwich, admittedly in a good team, but really impressive for his first senior minutes at a pretty young age. So you kind of feel like he could be anything he wants to be, but by the same token, I can't sit here and big him up and think he's going to go straight into the Premier League, because that is just we've all been scarred by what that level is like for any sort of player. So it'll be interesting whether he hangs around Norwich for the first half of the season as a fourth choice centre back, because I do think Norwich will recruit one this window, or whether he goes out on loan, whether that happens in January. Because if I was a Championship club and I was like, I've only got a limited budget for a centre back, I'd get Andrew in straight away, because I just think he's got it, and if it's the right environment for him, I think he can prove that. And then Josh is a tricky one, because I feel like he was making real progress. I feel like Norwich really think really highly of what he's got, and it just sort of stalled a bit. So I feel like he is also at a point now where I don't think he's going to get the chance here at the moment. I have to say, I think he needs to go away and kind of prove himself a bit, which surprises me a little bit, because of how highly he was thought of, say, 12 months ago. Norwich are pretty good at seeing someone, and if certainly if Daniel Farke feels like they've got it, then they will be given a chance. So I feel like he's probably at a position where he has got probably the most to prove and really needs the games to prove it. But they're all three are interesting stories. Adam and Andrew coming over from Ireland. It was probably about 5 years ago now. They had to prove a lot, and not everyone always saw it in them at Norwich. And Josh was released by Arsenal, or sort of had to get himself out of Arsenal. So, and Dan Barden, the goalkeeper, was another one who they've had to follow that up. So Norwich have kind of mixed and matched their actual recruitment in terms of the academy with someone like Todd, who was there from the age of 10. So it's sort of taken all sorts. But what they've done well is improve the finishing school element of it. I think Norwich have tended to always produce good young players. It's just whether there was a path for them to actually play in the first team at Norwich, and I think they've tried to make that much more accessible with, I have to say, the help of Daniel Farke, which, as you were saying earlier with Kieran Dowell, if Daniel Farke plays you get the time and you get the trust to have a real go at it. It makes such a difference for these young players. There's not many managers I see who do that, who are also given the freedom to do it, maybe a degree of less pressure on the wins. Daniel Farke isn't going to get sacked because he loses 10 games on the trot, because that didn't happen and they did. That I think he can take a lot of credit, but so can those guys for taking the opportunity too and having that nurturing environment to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the finishing school aspect of Norwich is something which, it transmits to other fans of other fan bases, and to people who just watch Norwich casually. I think, there is a feeling that, obviously we touched on Max Aarons before, which was, Barcelona rumours and whatnot, and, loan no obligation to buy and whatever it was. There's clearly, that's not a coincidence that these young players are obviously thriving in this atmosphere because they're given the opportunity. Emi Buendia has been there for 2-3 years now, and now he's getting eventually an Argentina call up. It's because he's been given the opportunity. He could have been anywhere. But Norwich has proved to be the place which facilitated his growth, which facilitated his, he was given the freedom, the ability to do that. And I think that's one of the great success stories of Norwich, is that it has established itself as having a reputation as being a good place for developing talent, even if it isn't coming through the academy. So I think that's something which will always be attached to Norwich, especially while Daniel Farke is there.